let's do a quick review what we did yesterday. So yesterday we basically created the lab environment. We built a couple of virtual machines, primarily Windows virtual machine, and I gave you the liberty to build Linux if you wish to. If you come from Linux background and you want to understand Linux part also, you've got appropriate access on both Azure and AWS. You can build virtual machines either in Azure or in AWS when it comes to Linux. However, for servers, you will be provisioning it in AWS, and client, you will be provisioning it in Azure. That's what we did yesterday. So after we built the lab environment, the next step, after our lab environment is up and running, the next step is to onboard the assets or host into Tenable Vulnerability Management so that we can deploy agents, scanners, or whatever capability Tenable brings on the table. We can deploy Tenable Vulnerability Management solution on those assets, and we can start to perform vulnerability scans, the capabilities that Tenable brings on the table. So that's what we need to do as a next step. So is everyone logged into your respective account? I'll also log into Microsoft Azure and AWS. So I'm logged into Azure, log into AWS. Give me a moment here. Okay. All right, so I'm logged into Microsoft Azure. I'm logged into AWS, and I'm also logged into Tenable console. So I have all the three consoles opened in the same browser tab. So please don't turn on the virtual machine. Let's first understand the theoretical aspects, then we will get into the hands-on lab. Right. So I already gave you a walkthrough of Tenable Vulnerability Management UI. We have actually covered a couple of a couple of concepts in the UI under settings. There are some remaining, as and when the right time comes, I will keep on talking about those concepts or those utilities which are there in the UI. So I'll just skip this slide. I'll share this presentation with you at the end of the training so that you can use it for your reference purpose. Now, these are key components of Tenable, which is asset discovery, vulnerability detection, prioritization. There is nothing new. It is this same vulnerability management solution. It just definitely there will be a comparison that I will share it with you that how Tenable compares with Rapid7, Qualys, or let's say CrowdStrike, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. I'll share some resources with you and you can do the comparison and correlation that would be based on capabilities, would be based on pricing, end user experience, and the licensing, whether it provides perpetual license or one-time cost. So you will see all of those factors getting compared in the comparison sheet. So we'll just skip this slide. Navigating the dashboard, as I said, we've already covered. Lab environment building, we have done that yesterday. So after we built, now the entire lab environment building actually comprises the entire exercise for this training, which is we basically, start with the introduction of vulnerability management. We introduce Tenable Vulnerability Management as another, solution that basically does vulnerability management. It can help detect vulnerabilities. It can scan for vulnerabilities, discover vulnerabilities across network systems, across operating systems, applications, and then you can use Tenable to remediate those vulnerabilities. And later on, you can also get reporting and automation. So we are here. We are done with the step number one, which is where we have determined the goal of our lab, which is we want to test vulnerability scanning, we want to do remediation strategies. Then we started with setting up the infrastructure. We are done here. We have got a virtual machines. We have got a couple of virtual machines that we will use to run the vulnerability scan. Now, as I said, this training is more about introducing, giving you a guidance and giving you a walkthrough of Tenable Vulnerability Management solution. Anything which is related to a production environment, you will need to build it yourself. For example, you have lab access with yourself. Now, if you want to scan for vulnerabilities, if you have some ideas in mind, go ahead and deploy those applications, those simulations into your lab environment and see the Tenable, capability, whether Tenable is able to identify that vulnerability or not. It says establish a network topology that mimics a real world environment, including firewalls and subnets. So obviously, we do not have firewalls since it's not a production environment. However, our network that we have built, we can basically create subnets in that network, and we can provision virtual machines across subnets. What we did yesterday, we basically provisioned virtual machine in the same subnet. We did not segment our network across multiple subnets, or I would say in on-premises language, we call that LAN and VLAN. So we built a LAN, but we did not build multiple VLANs. We just created one VLAN and we provisioned our machines there. The reason we have a very few machines, 4 or 5 machines that we will use to test the capability of the product. In a production environment, you will have thousands of assets. So obviously they will be segmented as per their roles, as per their business units and department, as per their application environment, whether they are uh, production environment, non-production environment, staging and training. So you will see a lot of a lot of capabilities in a production environment. However, training will focus on an environment that we build for ourselves, which allows us, which lets us leverage or understand the capabilities that a specific tool and solution brings on the table. So let's get started. So we are done. We are done with the step number two. Now we will start with step number three, which is install Tenable solution. Now Tenable has multiple solutions. The focus solution that we have is Tenable Vulnerability Management. Tenable has a couple of solutions for Nessus also, Nessus Professional, Nessus Expert, Nessus Manager, Tenable Security Center, Tenable.io, which is now Vulnerability Management, Tenable Cloud Security. There are multiple modules from Tenable. Uh, Let me quickly show you those modules which are there. So these are the, I'm say products. If you look at the products, we have Tenable Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, which is more of a cloud app security platform. Tenable has a CIM also, Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management, which primarily helps you manage. It falls under identity and access management, wherein you can manage the entitlement, access packages, or identity lifecycle management using this solution. Tenable has just-in-time access, which allows an organization to deploy the solution so that when access to privileged resources is requested by identities, by employees, by vendors, partners, they will be granted just-in-time access, the time-bound access to those to those identities or to those systems and resources. And while they are accessing it, they the solution will constantly take screenshots. It may record the session also, so that you will always know what they are doing on those privileged systems. This is similar to a privileged access management solution from CyberArk, ForgeRock. That's the same solution. Then Tenable open source is there. For vulnerability exposure, you have vulnerability management, the one that we are focusing on. We have Tenable Security Center solution also. Tenable web app scanning, we have access to that. Tenable Enclave Security, Tenable Lumen, Tenable Attack Surface Management is there, which is EASM solution, which primarily helps you to do open source intelligence, OSINT. Then you have Tenable Nessus. So they still have Tenable Nessus, which is a separate solution wherein you get Tenable Nessus Manager, Tenable Nessus Expert, Tenable Nessus Professional. And then for operational technology, Internet of Things, they have a separate solution which is Tenable OT Security, which primarily focuses on protecting IoT, IoT and OT devices. And for Tenable identity exposure, they have the solution which basically helps you protect your identities, similar to any identity and access management solution does. So there are multiple solutions. So Tenable is not a vulnerability management company anymore. Same is the case with Qualys. You all work with Qualys, and you also know that Qualys has multiple capabilities now. Qualys is not a vulnerability management solution anymore. Qualys provides CNAPP capability. Qualys provide patching capability. Using Qualys is a patch management module. You can directly use Qualys patch management to patch, patch your host or your resources for vulnerabilities that are presented at Qualys, scan. Qualys provides you cloud security. Qualys provides you asset management. Qualys has module for policy management. It has module for external attack surface management. It has module for compliance. So Qualys also has multiple modules. I would say there are 26 plus modules which are there in Qualys. Uh, so I'm going to deliver a training on Qualys in this first or second week of December. Uh, so Qualys has multiple modules, right? And I just had a call with the client today to scope that what all modules we will be able to cover in a 5 days training. That's the reason I remember all of this. So there are multiple modules in Qualys also. Same is the case with CrowdStrike or any Sentinel One or any security solution that you think of today. They are not meant to be what they used to be. They are not a subject matter expert anymore. They have become jack of all trades. Tenable is now providing multiple capabilities. Why are they evolving like this? Because they don't want customers to look out and for other options. When the customer is with Tenable, Tenable would want to support all requirements of the customer. So there are multiple solutions that we have in Tenable. So the focus solution that we have is Tenable Vulnerability Management. And as part of Tenable Vulnerability Management, we will install the solution. So let's understand what all options do we have. Then we will come to the discovery part. So we are here on third stage, and we will need to be here by the end of this training. These portions 6, 7, 8, this will not take much time. That's the reason we are spending more time in the initial design and architecture of the solution. Once the solution is designed and implemented as per your requirement, it would not take much time to understand the consumption part of it. So let's move on. We are done with the lab environment building. So we start with the configuration of the solution. The solution that we are configuring is Tenable Vulnerability Management. So when we talk about configuring the solution, Tenable provides us sensors, scanners, sensors, whatever you call them. Tenable.io used to be the name of the product, which has now changed to Tenable Vulnerability Management. So I've taken this image from Tenable documentation, which still refers to as Tenable.io. In fact, in the URL, they still have Tenable.io. So that will take time to basically change it. So if you look into the image, I'm saying I'll just enlarge this image because I want to explain it through this image only. Give me a moment here. All right. So let's look at this image. This image basically provides you a lot of information. This image describes the entire solution. And from the architecture perspective, you will also come to know how this solution is working because it does vulnerability management is one thing. The question is how it does vulnerability management. That's exactly what you need to know. What all prerequisites are there? What all protocols and port it basically uses or it requires as a prerequisites before you start to consume the solution or start to get the capabilities of it. So that's where you can see here. So let me help you explain the solution. So this is where Tenable.io is. So Tenable is now a SaaS module. It's a cloud-based, browser-based application that you can access in the browser, and it's a SaaS application, software as a service, which means Tenable has built its infrastructure in some data center. Probably we are using the Tenable US data center. So in US West, because that's the data center where we are accessing the services from. So in US West, California, Washington, wheresoever they have the data center, this service is available, right? Then comes, so this service is available there. Now there are two aspects to Tenable. The aspect is that this is Tenable.io UI. How do you access the UI? This is the end user basically. So end user is accessing the UI, which is basically nothing but a deployment into the cloud as a SaaS module. And that UI basically contains the configurations. And with that configuration, you have two options that you can use. Basically, there are three. This image shows two because the third one is part of Tenable itself. These are the two that as a customer you will do. So as part of that, even if you look at the numbers, it says 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see agent returns the scan, status updates to Tenable. All that is written here. If you start with the first one, where is first? Okay, leave it. So there are two options which we have. First is Tenable Scanner, Nessus Scanner. So Tenable still uses Nessus. Nessus is a proprietary, it's an open source project that Tenable basically acquired and Tenable customized it. So Tenable uses Nessus Scanner and Nessus Agent. Now, Nessus Scanner is an appliance. This is similar to Scanner appliance in Qualys. You have a virtual appliance and you have a physical appliance. Nessus Scanner is a virtual appliance that Tenable Vulnerability Management uses. This virtual appliance you basically deploy in a virtual machine and you configure this appliance. This appliance is deployed in the network where you have your host hosted or host configured. So that's the appliance. How does this appliance communicates with Tenable? You can see it basically uses port 443, which is a secure socket layer communication, and TLS 1.2. So it still uses TLS 1.2. The latest is TLS 1.3. So Tenable is yet to change. Tenable is yet to upgrade its transport layer security to the latest one. So it uses TLS 1.2 and port 443 for all outbound communication. Outbound communication basically means that any information, so once you run a scan using a scanner appliance, it collects scan data, scan results. Those scan results, it is not storing in its local cache. It has to submit those scan results, send it to scanner, send it to Tenable so that processing can happen. Because the entire heavy lifting happens in cloud, in Tenable.io or Tenable Vulnerability Management. So it basically sends all the data on port 443 TLS.12. And same is the case with this appliance. This appliance also, Tenable also communicate with this appliance on port 443 itself. So you don't have any specific requirement to open a port on the appliance VM. Tenable doesn't require any sort of communication. Same is the case with Tenable agent, Nessus agent. So Tenable also provides you an agent configuration. You deploy the agent locally on the host. Scanner appliance is hosted in the network where the host resides. It is in the same network or in a network that has a trust with the host network. However, the agent resides inside the host itself. It is locally deployed on the host. And it also uses port 443 TLS 1.2 to communicate with Tenable Cloud Instance or Tenable Cloud UI or Tenable Management Server. Consider these are the agents and this is the management server of it. So it also uses the same information. Then comes what all I can do. It says agent steps, user creates scan request. I'm saying how do you perform a scan is what it shows basically. This is how the scan is performed. On the agent, you can see agent core update first sync, Windows 17.8 MB. So this is the amount of RAM that it basically picks up. I'll talk about the agent requirements, prerequisites also. And then you have certain, I'll talk about what plugins are here. Let's look this. So you can see here that they both require plugin. So the agent is receiving plugins, and the Nessus scanner is also receiving plugins. We'll talk about what plugins are. Then comes agent steps. When you are running the scan, this is the step that agent will take, and this is the step that scanner will take. So we basically have two components here, scanner and agent, that are constantly interacting with Tenable Cloud instance to receive configurations, to receive updates, and accordingly, they are executing those instructions. Instructions that you configure in the Cloud Console. So you're not configuring anything on the scanner appliance, you're not configuring anything on the agent. No configuration is being done on both of them. Now, that's the important decision. Uh, The question is that we have two types of sensors. One is scanner appliance, the other is agent. So the question is, should I, now there is one more, which is cloud scanners. Tenable has its own scanners also, which they have deployed across multiple regions, which I showed you the other day, which is here. If you navigate to uh, sensors, you can see all of these cloud sensors. You find them in almost one in each region. So they are also cloud sensors that you can use to run a vulnerability scan. So we have multiple. So we have cloud scanners, we have Tenable's Nessus scanner, and we have Nessus agent. So Tenable allows you to scan with one of these three sensor types. Now the question is, in what scenario will I be using a specific capability? So if you need to scan assets that are external to your network, assets which are outside of your network, Tenable recommends using cloud scanners. So you can, if you want to, even the assets which are internal to your network, but you want to scan them from outside. For example, you want to scan a web application. So in web application scanning, they will use their cloud scanners only, so that they can scan that application as an external entity, and they can identify whether that application is susceptible to a DNS hijacking, brute force attack, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or all other information that it provides. This is similar to web app scanning in Qualys also. So Tenable recommends using cloud scanners. Cloud scanners are managed by Tenable and do not require any upkeep from your organization. It doesn't require any update from you. Any upkeep, any maintenance, it doesn't require. Then comes, if you want to scan assets within your network, which are part of your network, you can choose between scanning with Tenable Nessus scanner or Tenable Nessus agent. Both options are there. You can use Nessus scanner and agent. Now, I have this table in which I have summarized the pros and cons of each. And as I told you yesterday, or probably day before, that when it comes to a production environment, they use a combination of scanners and agents. Obviously, scanner requires a license, so you will always have less number of scanners and more agents, but it's a combination. So Tenable Nessus scanners. Pros. Nessus scanner can scan entire network, while Tenable Nessus agent can only scan the asset that they are installed on. Since it's a scanner, it's sitting outside of the asset host, it can scan the entire network. However, agents cannot scan the network, they will only be able to scan the host. So if you want to run a network discovery, if you want to do a host discovery, you would use Nessus scanner. Tenable Nessus scanner allows you to perform external and remote security checks also. You want to check whether a specific host is, what all ports are open on a specific host. You can use Nessus scanner. Unlike Tenable Nessus agent, Nessus scanner provides, give me a moment. Nessus Scanner provides an outside view of your network through features such as port scanning. Nessus scanners can also provide an inside view of your network if you configure them with credentials. So if you want to understand The internal network of a host, you can use Nessus scanner with credentials, and it can also provide you internal information about a host. Now, what are the limitations? Unlike Nessus agents, you have to update Nessus scanner credentials manually. In Nessus agent, you doesn't require a credential because it is locally hosted on the VM. However, for scanner, if the credential changes, you will need to update the credentials, otherwise the scan will fail. This can cause permission and login issues to your organization if your organization does not actively update the credentials. Network scanning with Nessus scanner usually takes longer than scanning individual assets with Tenable Nessus agent. Obviously, if an outsider comes in and tries to get information, it will take time to collate information. Somebody who is an insider can quickly get access to information. So that's another thing. Let's talk about the other one, which is Nessus agent and then its benefits and loopholes. So when it comes to Tenable Nessus agent is a lightweight user space program and only use minimal system resources. It's a lightweight application that you deploy directly on the host, and it doesn't use more than 50 to 60 MBs of RAM. That's the minimum that it uses. When it comes to CPU, it doesn't even use 10% of the CPU. Tenable Nessus agent are installed directly on the target assets. So unlike Tenable Nessus scanner, they do not require managed credentials. Unlike Nessus scanner, you do not have to worry about geographical placement of Tenable Nessus agent. Scanner, when you deploy a scanner appliance, you choose a region where you want to deploy that appliance. However, Nessus agent doesn't require that geographical information. Generally, scanning individual assets with Tenable Nessus agent is much faster than scanning the entire network. Tenable Nessus agent can collect and send asset data to Tenable Vulnerability Management as the agent has internet access. In other words, Tenable Nessus agent allows you to scan assets that are not connected to your corporate network. Now, the other thing is in a highly regulated environments like defense, research, research and development, a government, manufacturing, or aviation, defense, they are highly regulated environment. In those environments, using scanner would not be feasible because scanner would need access to all the hosts and hosts are running in isolation. They do not allow any incoming traffic. They do not allow access on certain ports as per the security requirements, like highly regulated industries, manufacturing, where you have OT systems. Now, IoT and OT systems do not allow any incoming traffic. So you would not be able to use scanner there. In that case, you will be using agent. Agent is locally installed. It doesn't require any incoming traffic. All it requires is the plugin that it basically synchronizes every 24 hours from its management server. So it allows for outbound traffic and the river and any response against that outbound request from the other side, which is from the cloud side to agent, is allowed. But any new session inbound from internet is not allowed. In that case, agent should be there. So I have a couple of customers who are part of manufacturing industry, and for their plants, manufacturing plants, they don't use any external scanners or scanners. They always use agent. They always use host level security, whether it is DLP solution, whether it is IDS IPS solution, whether it is firewall, whether it is vulnerability management, whether it is endpoint detection and response. They don't allow any external agent. They always use internal agents. Okay. What are the drawbacks of this approach? The drawback is the Tenable Nessus agent are not designed to perform network checks. So certain plugins items cannot be checked if you only run agent scans. Tenable Nessus agent cannot perform security checks that require remote connectivity. For example, if you want to check whether this system is accepting, and see if you want to do a telnet analysis through telnet what all ports are accessible. Agent cannot do that because it cannot do outside in access. It will always do inside access. Unlike Tenable Nessus Scanner, Tenable Nessus Agent cannot account for any asset that do not have Tenable Nessus Agent installed. So I'm saying Nessus Scanner cannot uh, cannot work on any asset that doesn't have an agent installed. However, Scanner can scan all the assets irrespective of the agent presence or not. So Tenable itself says that use whichever sensor best suits your environment and business requirements. However, in many circumstances, customers should use both agents and network assessment for different types of systems and part of their network, right? And I have also added this UI, I've said this documentation from Tenable, which basically gives you more information about agent. So let's do it quickly. Let's understand a couple of things. So this is about agent. What we are trying to understand directly is the system requirements. So that you understand that what are my system requirements. When it comes to hardware requirements, this is what an agent needs. The system on which now when it comes to the Tenable Nessus scanner, there is no hardware requirement because it is sitting outside. Agent needs to be deployed on the host, so there are some hardware and software requirement. Hardware requirement is that agent would require only 50 to 60 MB of RAM. However, when it is performing a scanning, it will use whatever RAM is available, and you can always restrict it. Agent uses almost no CPU while idle. When it is doing nothing, no CPU utilization. But when they are designed to use design when they are designed to but they are designed to use up to 100% of the CPU when available during jobs. Now this becomes a challenge in a production environment. Sometimes solutions like EDR solutions, vulnerability management solutions, they occupy resources which basically which basically lets important applications run running for resources. So because of which production impact is there. So we can always configure the threshold in terms of the maximum resources that Tenable Nessus can use, and I'll show you that configuration in the portal. It says the following table outlines the minimum recommended hardware for operating system for operating a Tenable Nessus agent, which is if you're deploying an agent on a machine, it should have at least one CPU core. A processor speed should be greater than 1 gigahertz. RAM should be more than 1 GB, and disk space should be more than 2 GB. Agent has a small cache that it maintains. When it doesn't have connectivity with its management server, it will store all the scan data in that cache. The moment that connectivity is restored, it will quickly submit all the data. Other than this, it will also store some plugins. Plugins are nothing but the intelligence that is coming from the management server, which contains information about vulnerabilities. So it's like a vulnerability management database. So agent may require more space during certain processes such as plugins code, DB, defragmentation operation. And this speed, I'm saying from the read-write perspective, it requires 15 to 50 IOPS, input output per second, or read byte per second or write byte per second. That's what it requires. We are not bothered about Tenable Nessus Manager because that's not the product that we are focusing on. So that's the hardware requirement of the agent. Give me a moment. Next, then comes software requirement. Now, what are my software requirements for the agent? Then comes software requirement. So agent has multiple versions. We always go with the latest version. In fact, in this training, we'll be using the latest version, which is Tenable 10.8. The reason I'm sharing this information from directly Tenable documentation, because this information keeps changing. As and when they optimize the agent, its system requirements keeps on changing. So there is no point of putting this information into a presentation that you will update all the time. So I always provide a hyperlink reference, and then I directly provide the information from the documentation so that it is always up to date. So when it comes to the system requirements, you can see this is the system requirements for an agent. These are all the operating systems that it supports. It supports Amazon Linux, CentOS, Kali Linux, Debian, and it shows you the versions also. Fedora, Red Hat, 8 and 9 both, SUSE Enterprise Linux 15, Service Pack 2 and later, Tencent, Ubuntu. So you don't see your Solaris here. Somebody said Solaris yesterday. So if your customer is using Solaris, Tenable is not the product because Tenable doesn't work. Yep. That's the reason we're going through this exercise so that you will understand the in-scope and out-scope activities for this solution. So in future, if you are asked whether you can use this solution, you can straight away say, let me first double check the hardware and software requirements. Okay. So this is the requirements on the Windows. So you can't install the agent here, which means you can probably use scanner appliance. Scanner you can still use to scan that, but for that we will need to check later on. So Windows 10, Windows 10 and 11, and starting from Windows Server 2012 till 2025, they have updated this documentation in last week itself, because last week only Microsoft announced the public availability of 2025. So documentation is up to date here. So it says Tenable Nessus agent requires Windows host system to be running latest version of Universal Microsoft C Runtime Library. This is some additional requirements. PowerShell version 5 or above. Some older versions of Windows requires a minimum update to work with Tenable Nessus agent. If it is Mac OS, this is the requirement. So this is the hardware and software requirement for Tenable. Tenable Nessus agent does not require an external runtime environment such as Java. It doesn't need Java. That's about hardware and software requirement. Then comes the next port requirement, which is very important. So let's look at the port. What all port it requires to be up and running. So your Tenable Nessus agent requires access to specific port for outbound traffic. If you're working in a customer environment wherein they have firewall, an edge firewall or a network firewall, all the traffic is routed through that firewall, which means you will need to have this whitelisted on the firewall, or if there is a proxy that you are using, you will need to have it whitelisted via proxy also, or you will need to have a proxy information configured in the agent while you configure the agent so that agent can use proxy to communicate with the internet. So when it comes to outbound traffic, you must allow the following ports, which is port 443 to communicate with Tenable Vulnerability Management, port 8834 communicating with Tenable Nessus Manager. So if you're using Nessus Manager solution, then port 8834. If it is Tenable Vulnerability Management, then port 443 and port 53 for DNS resolution. That needs to be allowed outbound. It says the default port is 8834, but you can configure this port. Configure basically means that some ports cannot be configured. They are fixed. You cannot use any other port. And configurable basically means that you can use any other port against that port to avoid any security breach. Then Tenable Nessus Manager and Nessus Cluster Nodes. So we don't need to bother about it. We are just bothered about this agent part that we have. But it basically provides hardware and software requirements for other Tenable security solutions also, like Tenable security solutions and other solutions. Then comes licensing. Now, we are not bothered about Tenable Nessus Manager. And when it comes to the license, Tenable charges you per host. So Tenable provides you both perpetual licenses, in the form of, let's say, if you have 10 to 100, then this is the cost. 100 to 500, this is the cost. 500 to 1000, this is the cost. So Tenable provides you that capability. Plus, you can purchase licenses based on the host also. Both options are available. Right now, we don't need to worry about it because we are using a trial version. But once that trial is over, you will need to pay full licenses. The minimum cost that you will need to start your relationship with Tenable is a minimum of $5,000 a year, in which it provides you licenses for up to 99 hosts. That's the minimum commitment with Tenable. Is everyone with me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Raghu.
Okay. Any questions so far on the requirements?
No, thank you.
Raghu, the agent is not supported as always, but scanners can scan. Na?
Absolutely. You can't
In
deploy
qual,
it, but you can't, but you can use scanners.
yeah,
Okay.
in
That's,
Qualys, the Solvis agent is available.
yeah, so that's how these platforms differ from one another.
Right.
For example, it doesn't even in the software requirements, if you notice, it doesn't mention all the Linux distributions. Not all the Linux distributions are there. We have many Linux distributions.
Correct.
These are some, I would say, most common or most widely used. But you have more than 100 Linux distributions. If you just go to Microsoft Azure, search on my marketplace for Linux, you will see more than 100 Linux distributions. People like you and me, we have also built one distribution and uploaded that on marketplace. So
Right.
companies can also purchase it. But then the problem is nobody recognizes it. The security solutions would not support it. Okay. Then comes the most important thing, which is CPU control. Agent CPU resource pool. Now, this I will explain once we have agent deployed on the system. Once we have agent configured, then I'll talk about how, because this is the most common thing. See, you're going to be working either as somebody whose job is to consult, deploy, and architect and implement Tenable solution, or somebody who will work as a consumer of the solution. In both cases, having this knowledge would always help you, because this is a known issue with most of the security products. The moment you deploy them on the system, they tend to eat all the system resources, which affects the actual application, production application. And that is why most of the customer do not want to deploy any local instance of a security solution, but local instance is what is needed to provide you effective use case of that solution. So we can always control the resource, we can always control the resource utilization, or we can put a throttle, we can throttle the utilization, that okay, we will have configured the schedule in such a manner. uh, I'm saying in most of the trainings, I come across this situation when participants have this pain. So there is one thing is planning, that you plan your scans, vulnerability scans or security scans, if it's an EDR or XDR MDR solution, in such a manner that it does not coincide with production business hours. If your product is of nature wherein it is available 24 into 7, for example, it has customers browsing that product round the clock, then you will need to identify a window wherein you have less, customer footprints, and within that window you need to perform the scan, because scanning is equally important. You can't bring your application down to perform the scan has to run every day, and you can't take a downtime on your application every day. So what you need to do, you need to identify that window. We call it blackout window. In that window, because that's the window in which we will run the scan. And while you are running the scan, you will configure these resource control settings. So resource control settings will be configured for business hours and off business hours, so that your security will not impact the business, or even if it has an impact on the business, you can minimize that impact up to a certain extent. So that's on the uh, agent CPU resource control and performance matrices. How do you manage the performance matrices of your security solution? So we'll come to that part later on once we have the security solution. Let's just go ahead and deploy the scanner appliance as well as agent on our host, and then we'll come back to some of these concepts, because you need to be aware of these concepts also. Okay. So I also have some additional, so this is what we have already covered. We've already covered benefits and limitations, use cases, deployment considerations, best practices is also we need to look at, and system requirements we have covered about the agent, which is hardware requirements, software requirements, code requirements, and licensing requirements. So we have covered this part. Now, this is your agent deployment workflow that you need to remember. This, this workflow summarizes the entire configuration. So it starts with prerequisites. That's exactly what we did. We started with prerequisites. We looked at the prerequisites for licensing, hardware, software, deployment considerations. Best practices we did not review. I'll show you best practices also. Probably after we are done with deploying the agent, then we'll look at the best practices. Then comes deploying it, installing it and linking it. So we are here. So we will not deploy the agent first. We will start with scanner appliance. First, we will deploy a scanner appliance, and then we will deploy the agent also. So let's deploy the scanner appliance in Microsoft Azure. Or we can deploy the scanner appliance in AWS. It's totally up to you. So you can deploy it at both the in both Azure and AWS, but we will just deploy one appliance in one of the clouds. Then you can practice yourself if you want to get into the depth of it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are going to deploy, install Tenable Nessus scanner. See, we can't deploy cloud scanners. They are already managed and deployed by Tenable, and they are kept maintained by Tenable only. So we will deploy scanner, scanner sensor, and Nessus, Nessus scanner sensor and Nessus agent. And other Nessus products is out of scope for this training. So deploy, install Tenable Nessus scanner, and you also call it sensor because it's one of the sensor. The category under which it falls is sensor. Tenable Nessus scanner on Windows host. So when you deploy the scanner, I'd say it's a three-step process. The first step of the scanner is you will need to obtain the linking key from TVM, Tenable Vulnerability Management UI. So obtain the linking key from Tenable UI. Once you obtain the linking key, download and install Nessus scanner solution to your internal network. Wheresoever you have network, please download the solution to your network and on an OS of your choice. It provides, I'm saying it supports multiple OS that we will see what all it supports. So we can deploy it on OS of your choice. And once it is downloaded and installed, you need to access Tenable Nessus scanner UI. After it is installed, it also provides you a UI on host machine. And for that, the UI is it is HTTPS localhost 8834. So you can just open a browser on the host machine and type this type this URL, which is localhost, or you can type the IP address also of the host 8834, and then it will open the UI of Nessus scanner. And after this opens, then you will need to use the linking key to set up your sensor. So it's a 4-step process basically. That's what we are going to do now. Is everyone with me on this?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Where do we want to deploy the scanner? In Azure or AWS? Where do you want to do it?
Azure.
Let's start with AWS because it's tricky.
Okay, let's do it with AWS. So we'll do it in AWS, we'll do it in Azure also. Okay, because obviously your scanner in AWS cannot scan host in Azure because both cloud are separate and we have not created any VPN between the networks between Azure Virtual Network and AWS VPC. So you can probably deploy it at both sides so that you will have good idea of it. Okay, so let's start with AWS. Now, when it comes to AWS, I can build a separate VM to deploy my scanner, or I can use one of the virtual machines that I already have to deploy the sensor. I have both the options. However, in all the cases, I need to make sure one thing, that I will deploy my sensor in the same network where my virtual machines are. It should not happen that you deploy it in a different network, then it would not be able to scan your virtual machines, scan your host. So it has to be part of the same network. So yesterday you provisioned a VPC, and then inside that VPC you provisioned your virtual machines. So what we can do, we can use one of that virtual machine, and on that virtual machine we can install the appliance. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's navigate to, I'm sitting right here with you. Let's do it along with me. So I'm logged into my AWS console. My VMs are in Ohio. So I will navigate to Ohio. In Ohio, I will look for EC2, click on EC2 instances running, though instance is running. So let's start our EC2 instance. Let's only start one instance right now. One by one, we will do it. So I have three instances. Sachin has three instances. Those are from past. So let's deploy it on Windows 2016. Okay. So let's start the 2016 instance, all of you. On 2016 instance, you need to select that instance, then click on instance state and click on start instance. So we'll start this instance. It will take a minute for this instance to get started. And it says 2 by 2 check passed. Until it says 2 by 2 check passed, do not consider your machine is ready for you to connect. Now it says 2 by 2 check passed. I can connect to this machine. So as I told you, AWS is a bit tricky. Now I'll tell you how do we connect to our machine, or how do we take remote or SSH into a machine. If this would have been a Linux instance, I could have directly selected it and I could have collected from here, Cloud Share. Linux, you can directly connect. You don't need to use PuTTY and whatnot. You can directly take SSH from here. Since this is a Windows instance, you will hit connect. I would say this connect button is there.
So,
Hit connect, and then you will see three options. You will see some errors. Don't bother about those errors because your access is granted to limited services on AWS. So you will see uh, session manager, RDP client, and EC2 serial console. Let's click on RDP client, the middle option, because you're trying to take remote through RDP protocol. Session manager is a service. Systems manager, SSM, is an AWS service which lets you create a virtual operations in cloud. That is where you can have all your EC2 instances. It's like a remote desktop protocol, RDS session manager, wherein you can add your instances and you can directly connect to it. So we'll use the middle one, which is RDP client. In RDP client, we'll download the remote desktop file. Now remember one thing, file that we are downloading today will not work tomorrow, because the file will have a public IP that will change every 24 hours if the machine continues to up and run. If you reboot the machine, it will change the very next moment. So this file is only valid for today. Tomorrow we will get another file. Okay. So let's download the file. So file is downloaded. After the file is downloaded, you click on that file to run it. You will see this option, remote desktop connection. Check this box. Don't ask me again for connection to this computer. What it is trying to say, that that this is a system which is outside of your network. So you'll say that that's okay. Hit connect. When you hit connect, it asks you, it shows administrator as username, and it asks you for password, and you don't have password. So you see this option over here that says get password at the bottom. So you will click on get password. When you click on get password, it says use your private key to retrieve and decrypt the initial Windows admin password for this instance. So you need to use your private key, the one that you created and stored yesterday. So you click on upload private key file, and it opens your local system and look for the file where it is. For example, if you want to know, let's say you have multiple files and you're confused that which file corresponds to this machine, then it also shows you the file name. It says this is the file which is associated with this instance, which is Raghuveer-key pair. So you need to click on this Raghuveer-key pair because this is the one which is connected, and hit open. You will see the certificate here, the private key automatically uploaded here. Click on decrypt password. So we've got the password. You can't remember this password. Take my words for it. This is how AWS passwords are. That's the reason AWS doesn't allow you to store passwords. It says store the key. We'll give you passwords every time you need to log in. Unless you have your system joined to a directory, then you can use AD credentials also. Okay. So we'll copy the password. You have two boxes here, square boxes. That's copy button. Copy the password and paste the password here in your prompt. So I pasted the password. That's it. Hit OK. You will be able to connect. So I copied and pasted the password. Sometimes somehow it did not take it. Let's see why. And now I'm able to connect. Sometimes because of connectivity, network interruption, it may happen. So it's configuring the remote session. Since it's a server operating system, you need to give it probably a minute or two to load it properly. And there we go. So we are logged in the networks. Click on no. Okay. So we are logged in on this. Now it's a server operating system. It works in a different manner. So on this operating system, you don't have Edge. You have Internet Explorer. And on Internet Explorer, Nessus portal will not work. Nessus doesn't support Internet Explorer. I'll share the, so we are done with the first step. Remember I said it's a 4-step process, which is obtain the linking key from the Tenable Vulnerability Management UI. So let's obtain the linking key from the UI. This is my Tenable console. Tenable is also logged out. Let me log in. On the Tenable console, let's be on the home page. On the Tenable console, you need to click on those 3 horizontal lines, then navigate to sensors, and then click on cloud scanners. I'm saying just get to the sensors page. On the sensors page, you need to navigate to, over here it says add Nessus scanner. On the sensors page to your right, it says add Nessus scanner. You need to click on add Nessus scanner. It shows the linking key. This is the linking key. It also shows you the process to install the Nessus scanner on Linux and Windows. However, if you want to use this process, it gives you the entire command. This you will need to configure through group policy, configuration management softwares like SCCM. You can create a software package and you can push it to all the systems. They will receive this package. This package contains the linking key also. You can see this is the linking key that starts with C8, ends with D5. It is also there in the package. You can see here. So this is a command that you can run on PowerShell also to install the scanner. But before that, scanner must be downloaded. After installing the scanner, you need to run the command. So we will just keep it simple. We'll copy the linking key. I've copied the linking key and I'll put it on a notepad. So I'm done with the first step. Which is obtain the linking key from Tenable Vulnerability Management UI. Then the next step, download and install Nessus scanner solution to your internal network and on an OS of your choice. So let's download and install. For that, you will need access. You will need the UI. I'll share the UI. I'll put that into the chat window. That's the direct UI to download the Nessus scanner. You can also do this cloud.tenable.com/download. You can also use it. That will also take you to the same page. So cloud.tenable.com/downloads. No, no problem. I'll give you the direct UI then. This is Tenable download site. It is tenable.com downloads Nessus. You can click on this link. It will take you to the window where you can download the Nessus, but don't download it on your local system. You need to open it in your AWS instance. So copy it and paste it on AWS instance.
Could you please share that link, this link?
It's
With
there
the
in
chat.
I put it into the chat window. It's there in the chat. Can you check?
Mm,
Do you see it in the chat?
No, actually. No, could you please put again? Actually, I'm.
That?
Yeah,
Is it
no, I
now?
got it. Yep.
So just navigate, just copy the link from here, and inside your VM, you need to paste it. But then the challenge is your browser is no longer supported. I'm saying it doesn't support, it basically doesn't support this browser. So let's see whether download will work. No, it will not work. So which basically means it needs either Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or Safari. Those are the browser that it supports. So what you need to do, let's deploy Google Chrome in our VM so that we can deploy it, so that we can choose to download. Otherwise, this download button will not work. Right? So now since this is a server, a Windows server, it will not allow you to download anything from internet unless you do this activity. Close Internet Explorer and click on the Windows logo key at the bottom and open Server Manager. You need to open Server Manager on this VM. Let me know when you are here, all of you. Over here, you need to click on Local Server so that you see this window. And on this local server, you need to go to this option, which is IE Enhanced Security Configuration. Right now it is on. Click on it. IE Enhanced Security Configuration. Click on it and turn it off. Select the off radio button. Internet Explorer by default in a server operating system would not allow you to download anything. If you want to download, you will need to disable this setting. So we have turned this setting off. After you turn it off, close Server Manager. We don't need it anymore. Open Internet Explorer.
We need to turn it off for admin and users both.
Both.
Okay.
Right now you're logged in as an admin, by the way. So just turn it off. You don't want your users to also don't get bothered. Done?
Yeah.
Now open the Explorer, download Chrome. It will not bother you. Download and install Chrome.
The link which you have shared, Nessus,
Uh,
that I'm not able to install that.
no, now you need to, in Chrome, you need to paste that link.
Okay, first we need to download the Chrome. That's the part.
Yeah, you will not be able to do it from Internet Explorer because it's not a supported browser. So download that and say disable the enhanced security of Internet Explorer from Server Manager, and then install Google Chrome. And then in Google Chrome, you can open this link. It will work perfectly fine. Do not click on anything. Just be on this page, the one that you see on my screen. I need to explain something here. On this page, we have multiple options, guys. See, we have an option of virtual machine also. Why do we call it an appliance? We also call this an appliance because Nessus scanner or Nessus sensor is also available in the form of a virtual machine. You can click on this option and it says view Tenable Core plus Nessus virtual appliance. You can install this virtual appliance on VMware, on Hyper-V, because it is provided in open virtualization format. And you can also use this appliance to build a virtual machine in cloud environment. That's the reason we call it an appliance. However, if you have a containerized environment like Docker, you can also deploy it into a Docker. You can also deploy it by kernel. We are not using any of these options because we already have a virtual machine on which we are trying to deploy the scanner. So we will click on download. But before you click on download, let's see all the versions. So right now you will always see the latest version and you see the platform also here. Now, when you click on this arrow, drop down arrow, you will see a lot of platforms on which you can deploy the scanner appliance or scanner sensor, Tenable scanner, Nessus scanner. So you have Amazon Linux, Debian, Fedora, Raspberry, RHEL 7, 8, and 9 also. Then SUSE 12, 15, Ubuntu, macOS, Windows. So it doesn't support Solaris. I'm saying you cannot install it on Solaris, but you can find vulnerabilities of Solaris from the scanner appliance. So right now, what operating system do we have? We have Windows Server 2016. So this is the package. Basically, what happens the moment you open this website, and so this URL that you see, the long URL, it basically identifies the operating system version and architecture of your machine, and it provides you the best available package. So it automatically picked up this package, which is meant for server 2012, 2016, 2019, and 2022. So we have the right package. Let's download it. It will ask you to accept license agreement. Scroll it to the bottom and agree. Don't read it. It's too long. It's downloading the appliance. Once it is installed, you will need to execute it. You will need to run it. So I'll hit run. Accept the license agreement. And then you can install it. If you want to change the directory where you want to install it, by default, it goes under C program files, Tenable Nessus. You can change the directory also if you wish. Next, and then you can install it. So it will start to install the Nessus scanner. The installation got completed. I'll hit finish. And it will automatically open the UI. If it doesn't open the UI, or if you want to if you want to use this UI in Google Chrome, you can also do that. You just need to copy this URL and navigate to Google Chrome and put it there. That's totally up to you. The UI will work on Windows also. So I'll take a pause here. I'll stay on this screen till all of you reach to the screen. Those who are on the screen, please raise your hands. Except for Sachin, you all should be doing it. Keep your hands raised. Okay, so we will wait for Vineet, Anas, Kaveen, and Amit. All right, Vineet is also done. Great, Anas.
Raghu, I have issue with logging in with the
Logging with
the AWS. So I was stuck there itself.
You should have raised the concern and say, okay, let's do one thing. So where exactly are you stuck? You're not able to log into your virtual machine?
No, the login itself, AWS login.
Okay, we can quickly help you. Can you please share your screen real quick?
Okay.
Guys, if you're stuck anywhere, you need to raise your voice. You will need to tell me that you're stuck so that I can quickly help and make sure that all of you are on the same page. One appliance we will deploy together, and the next appliance in Azure, you do it in your spare time, whenever you get time, whenever you want to do it. Anas, quickly share your screen. In the VM in Azure?
Yeah, that is completed.
Yeah, so you can deploy this appliance on Azure then. Connect to the Azure VM and do this activity on Azure instead of AWS. AWS you can do later on.
Okay.
Okay, so let's quickly connect to Azure VM. Which is your VM? Windows 10, connect to it.
I have both Windows 10 and 11.
Let's put it on Windows 10, let's say. Click on connect. Yeah, connect. Select the native RDP. Download the file. This is how you connect to an Azure VM, guys. Azure is simple. Just download the RDP file, hit connect, type your username and password that you created yesterday. Are you connected to VPN? Disconnect from the VPN.
No, it's not connected to VPN.
No, but your EDR system is blocking this connectivity. It says re-authenticate with.
If I re-authenticate, the VPN will be on.
So I'm say this app gate, which is CASB solution, is actually blocking this RDP. Then how come user are able to take remote of AWS? How come you guys are taking remote of AWS? Because AWS also uses the same port 3389.
Let me try once again.
Guys, any other participant? Did you not face the same issue that Anas is facing while trying to connect? Refresh the portal now. Okay, the VM is running. Now connect to the VM. You can directly open remote desktop connection, MSTSC, copy the public IP and paste it there.
I have the downloaded file, so can I run that one itself?
Run it. The IP remains the same. You can run it. Hit connect. It will work now. Okay, so it was not working because the VM was off. Yeah.
It's working. Actually, yesterday you had stopped all Azure machines, and we only stopped the AWS machines. So that's why we forgot to
That's
just
okay.
start.
Then Azure should also work. Why? Because the solution has nothing to do with AWS and Azure. The solution is more on the port and protocol. So if it allows you outbound to internet on 3389, whether it is Azure, AWS, GCP, it will allow everywhere. If it doesn't allow, it will not allow anywhere. Then you have a solution. So you can play around with the security by changing the port because the solution is configured to block 3389 outbound to internet. What you can do, you can change the port, RDP port, and probably keep it 7859. And then you will be able to take remote. The only challenge that will happen is it will generate a log and security team may get notified that a user has changed the default RDP port on his system and they will probably come to you asking for justification. That's where you can tell that I'm going through a training session wherein I need to connect to my VMs and your solution is blocking me. Okay. Install the solution real quick so that we all are on the same page. Yeah, hit download. So in Azure, virtual machines comes pre-configured with Edge browser, which supports everything. In AWS, Microsoft is very smart. They don't provide Edge browser.
Raghu, what I did in AWS, instead of this Chrome, I installed Edge.
That's okay. It's one in the at the end of the day, it supports Internet Explorer. Other browsers it supports.
Yeah, actually, in that condition, I am not provided download disable download restriction.
Okay.
Shall I run it?
Yes. Yeah, just double click on it and install it real quick so that we all are on the same page. Because after we install it and configure it, we need to leave the solution at least for 10-15 minutes so that it will register itself with the management portal and it will download the required plugins. And that's where we'll take a break. All right, Anas, other than Anas, do I have any participant who is facing an issue?
Raghuveer, I just joined
Yeah.
back again. So what are the things that I need to do? If you tell, I will slowly pick up.
Who is this, Kavin?
Yeah, I just want to join a call, so I went offline.
No problem. What we are trying to do right now, Kavin, we are trying
Yeah.
to install what you see on Anas screen. This is what we are trying to do. We are trying to install Nessus scanner on one of the virtual machines that we deployed in AWS. Since
Okay.
did not Anas could not deploy virtual machines in AWS, so Anas is doing it in Azure, but we are doing it in AWS.
Okay. I will start AWS instance and I will try to do that.
Yeah, please do that. I have already provided the URL in the chat window, which basically contains the download link.
I
Okay.
opened that in my home machine, but I will try to open that in AWS.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
should be the VM where you're trying to.
Yeah, sure.
I'll take the control now, guys. Hope my screen is visible to everyone. Abhijit, do you have any
Yeah.
questions?
No.
Okay. So what you need to do, guys, you need to click on connect via SSL. It will try to connect with its management server over the internet. And since your system doesn't have SSL certificate, it says your connection is not private. Click on advanced and accept the risk. Say proceed to localhost. And then it will come here on this screen. Let me know when you are on this screen, guys.
In which machine I
Yes.
need to install, Raghuveer?
Any of the machine, 2016, 19, 2022, pick up any machine.
Okay.
Okay. Now on this screen, guys, there are two options. See, as I said, you can deploy this solution in a regulated environments also where there is no internet connectivity. They are regulated. Or you can download it or you can install it in an environment where everything is allowed. So since we have internet connectivity on this VM, we will directly install it. However, before we install it, there is a setting option. Let's see what these settings are. These are the settings. In some companies, internet is routed, internet is allowed via proxy. So if you have internet connectivity via a proxy service, you will need to provide that proxy information here. The proxy server IP address or FQDN, port number on which proxy server accepts traffic, username and password for the authentication. So that any communication that will go from Tenable, the proxy will honor that communication and will allow Tenable to access its management services. That's proxy. Then comes plugin feed. You don't need to provide. Now, plugin feed basically means imagine that you are working in an environment where on this server you don't have internet connectivity. So you cannot download the plugin. Plugin basically means instructions from Tenable. So in that case, you can basically provide the host name or IP address of another server that has connectivity from where you can download it. So on that server, you will download the plugin and from there, it will get copied on this machine. This is the plugin part. Then comes encryption password. Now, encryption password is needed. You need to create this password. Why? If you ever lose access to this sensor will also store some data. See, right now we are deploying this sensor for Tenable Vulnerability Management solution. But this is a common sensor which is also for Nessus. Nessus Manager, Nessus Expert, Nessus Professional, they are different league of products and solutions. So you need encryption password so that you will be able to retrieve the data if in case this solution stops working. So please create an encryption password, all of you. Make sure you make a note of it also. Are you with me on this?
Yes.
Actually, I'm not. Wait a minute. When I'm trying to connect, actually, I'm getting some certificate error. I know. Oh, can I share my screen?
Okay, yep, please do that. Others are able to create the encryption password, guys. Okay, this
Actually, I am stuck here.
Yeah, just click on this certificate and accept it. Accept this error.
Okay, this one.
Yep. View certificate is invalid. Oh, there is an option. Okay, close this. Close this for a moment. Close this window also.
This one.
Yeah. Oh, no. This will disconnect the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Need to close the browser window.
Yes.
Browser window.
Mm-hmm.
Closed. Now open the browser window once again and type localhost colon 8834. 8834. Hit enter. Yep. Type HTTPS. Okay, you did not type HTTPS hyphen HTTPS colon forward slash forward slash.
HTTPS.
Yep. Forward slash now. Now hit enter.
Okay.
Okay, now click on
Hmm.
advanced and proceed. You need to zoom out so that you will see that option.
Yes. Now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now
Continue. Now continue, right?
no. Go to settings first
Okay.
and click encryption password and create an encryption password.
Okay, fine. I'm stopping.
Yeah. So create the encryption password and then come back to the main page. I'll take the control back. We will not need that password in this training because, however, you should understand the options. My objective is always to cover as much as possible about a solution so that you will have answer to all the questions. When you go back on the floor and say that you have just come from Tenable training, there should not be a question to which you don't have an answer. That's what my objective is. Okay, so once you click on these settings and once you provide the proxy information, if there is any a plugin feed, if there is any additional server which basically gets the plugin and you want to get it from there, you can put the host name or IP address of that server and you can create an encryption password. So I've created the encryption password. I'll save this information. I'll come back to this page. Now on this page, I need to hit continue. When I hit continue, it will give me multiple options. As I said, Tenable Nessus Scanner is a common product for Nessus line of solutions as well as Tenable Vulnerability Management. So I have multiple options. Set up a purchased instance of Tenable. Probably you have purchased Tenable license directly. Sorry, you purchased Nessus directly. You can use this option. Start a trial of Nessus Expert. Start a trial of Nessus Professional. Register for Nessus Essential. These are Nessus products, so we are not interested in it. We'll use the last option, which is link Nessus, link this scanner to another Tenable product. The last radio button you will click on, and then you will hit continue. And over here, you will see the product, multiple products of Tenable. You have Tenable Vulnerability Management, Tenable Security Center, Nessus Manager Cluster Node and Scanner. Select Tenable Vulnerability Management, which is also by default selected. And there comes the linking key that you have copied in the first step. You will need to paste the linking key here. So I copied it on a notepad. I'll pick it up from the notepad. I'll go back to the VM and paste the linking key here. Are you with me on this?
Yeah, Raghu.
Great. Click continue. After you paste the linking key, you will click continue, and then you will get an option to create a user account. Now, what is this user account? This user account is for authenticating to this scanner appliance, to the sensor. Since this is linked to Tenable Vulnerability Management, you will not make any configuration on this sensor. Everything will be controlled from Tenable console. But imagine if this sensor would have been configured for Tenable, for Nessus expert, Nessus products, Nessus solutions, then you would need to do the configuration. However, this username and password you need to create so that you will be able to log into the scanner. So let's create the username and password.
Raghu, where can I get the linking key?
Where can we get the linking key is the question?
Yeah.
Okay, for linking key, you need to navigate to Tenable portal, Vulnerability Management portal. Log into the portal. It signs you out after 5 minutes of inactivity.